Hi everyone, welcome to mini drawing tutorial number 2 with me, Prentis Rollins. For this tutorial, I'm going to be talking to you about light and shadow. And the main thing I'm going to want you to take away from this are the differences between direct light and reflected light. Not as hard as it sounds. Let me show you what I mean.
So I'm going to begin by drawing a simple circle using the ruler tool of my computer. Again, I'm using my computer and my Cintiq tablet for ease of instruction. Okay. So here we have a simple circle. You can do this, follow along with me on paper. The circle does not have to be perfect, don't worry about it. Now what we want to do is we want to turn this circle into a visual representation of a sphere. A sphere is different from a circle. A sphere is like a basketball, or the Earth is a sphere, the moon. It's a three-dimensional object in space. So, how do we do that? Well, we do it by the depiction of light and shadow. When you're drawing, there's a sense in which you're always drawing, or painting if you're painting, light and shadow and nothing else. It's because of light that we're able to see things, and if we couldn't see things, then we couldn't draw or paint them. So let's imagine that the sun, I'm going to put it right there, is right there. It's a pretty strong light source. That means that its rays are going out in all directions, and they're going to be striking this sphere. Now, they're going to light up this side of it only. These light beams are not able to turn around and get behind. They're only going to be able to light up one side of the sphere. So let me just start here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mark off, that's the area right here. That's the area that is being hit by the light beams, right here. Now I'm going to darken in this part that's dark, and I'll explain what's going on at the bottom of the sphere in a couple minutes. Let me just do this. So this part of the sphere that I'm darkening in is in shadow. And now what I'm doing is I'm putting in these rendering lines. I'm going to talk more about rendering in another one of these mini tutorials. And you can see is how they're kind of curving along the edge of the sphere, which is helping to reinforce its round shape. What I'm doing here is called, I'm going to write this for you, cross hatching. I'm going to talk about this even more I think, when we do our mini tutorial on rendering. Cross-hatching is a method of rendering objects. It involves these crisscrossing lines, which is what I'm doing now. I'm going to turn my drawing a little bit, and this area, the bottom of the sphere, is also going to be rendered with cross-hatching, but I'm not going to leave any blank area as I have at the top, and I'll explain why in a minute. It's doing these crisscrossing lines all over the place. Now I'm using white ink here to kind of make this cross-hatching a bit more ornate and pretty. The main thing I'm trying to convey here is the way I'm using the idea of a light source and light to give this circle shape and turn it into a sphere. Do the same thing a little bit down here. Going back to black ink. Okay. So this is looking more like a sphere already, but I want to have it resting on a surface. So I'm going to kind of sketch in a tabletop, and we can imagine that this is a marble or a ball sitting on a tabletop. Now the light is hitting the ball, and some of it is hitting, a lot of it is hitting the table as well. But the ball is blocking the light, all of the light from hitting the table. So in other words, the ball is going to cast a shadow, which I'm going to sketch in right now. Now I'm going to darken the shadow in. I'm always turning my drawings when I'm drawing. I'm angling them. I do this when I'm working on paper too, not just on the computer. Just makes things easier. Okay. So as you can see, now this looks very much like a proper sphere resting on some kind of tabletop. The light that is hitting the surface of the sphere that is exposed to the sun is direct light. This part of the sphere is lit up by direct light. And the part at the bottom of the sphere is that's lit up is what's called reflected light. Light is coming from the sun, it's hitting the ball, but it's also hitting the table, and it's bouncing back like this. and it's hitting this underside, creating this very subtle and lovely effect of reflected light. Let me show you something a bit more. This is a drawing I did for an art book I worked on some years ago. I know this is pretty daunting, so I'm not going to ask you or anybody else to draw this. I'm just trying to show you an example of direct and reflected light hitting a human face. So this man is being lit from the light source is above him, and it's striking this plane of his face. And so these areas here and this nose and this side of his face are brightly lit, as is this cheekbone and part of his face here. This part of his face is very much in shadow. The ear is in shadow. But I've used some cross-hatching because I didn't want to just black everything out. I've used cross-hatching to put those areas in shadow. And there's some reflected light striking his cheek and beneath his chin. This is a face I'll finally show you. This is actually from one of the other mini tutorials. I actually drew this face in the mini tutorial that's coming up on drawing the human face. And this is just a pretty standard comic book character drawn in a pretty standard way. And this person is not lit. It's a full frontal face view in even light with no shadows. Now, suppose I wanted to make the lighting of this face just a little bit more dramatic and compelling. Suppose the light source is above this young lady. Well, I could start to throw, just using some simple lines like this, throw some shadow under her eyebrows, under the ridge of her brows, and perhaps because we know that her nose juts out from her face, I could throw a shadow like this, just using these simple lines. This is a very simple rendering technique. Under her nose, I could throw a little shadow under her upper lip, like this. And I could throw a shadow under her chin, putting part of her neck in shadow. And this would help to indicate that her face is kind of protruding in front of her neck, and if light is falling on her from above, her neck is going to be partly cast in shadow. And these things, they make the drawing a little bit more dramatic, and they help to indicate the presence of a strong light source. There we go. Okay, we're at the end of this mini tutorial. Thank you very much for watching. Again, the main things that I hope you have taken away from this are the distinctions between light source. I'll write that in right here. In this case, it's the sun right up there. And direct light. Direct light is the strong light that is striking the exposed surface of an object. In this case, it's a sphere. And reflected light. Reflected light is always a weaker light, and it is light that is bouncing off another surface and creating a very subtle lighting effect on a different surface of the object. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me, and I hope to see you again at our next mini tutorial. Till then, bye-bye and take care.